Okay, hi Danny. Welcome to math lesson number 42. This one is going to be super fun today. I think you're really going to like it. This goes over multiplying multiples of 10 and 100. And we're also going to go over rounding numbers to the nearest hundred. So I think that you're going to understand this right away, and I think is going to set you up for the next and most awesome thing that we're going to do. You are going to need this paper, so I'm going to put it with your stuff, and you're going to need this, I think, for your homework, okay? So use that when it talks about using a grid for something. You're going to get that out and use it for your homework. Your lesson today is like this, so you're going to need to open it kind of like a book and be careful doing that. And then the first part of your lesson, you're going to go over some multiplication facts. So I can't wait to see what you do with it. You have 5 minutes to do your multiplication facts. Okay, Danny? Love you. Have fun with your math. Okay, hi Danny. Welcome to lesson number 42. You should have done your multiplication facts by now. And this is going to be a great lesson because this goes over multiplying multiples of 10, which is always a good thing to do, and also multiplying multiples of 100, and then rounding numbers to the nearest 100. So even though it seems like it's going to be easy because you've done things like that before, it is going to introduce a little bit of a new concept and set you up for a more difficult concept that's coming up in the next lesson. So I do want you to pay lots of attention to this one, okay? So we're going to go ahead and get started with mental math. Here's a little kiss for you from the Minions. All right, mental math. We're going to start out with 563 minus 242. Remember, these were the ones where we were doing sort of left to right, just subtract, sort of 5 minus 2 and get a 3, do 6 minus 4, get a 2, do 3 minus 2 and get a 1. So without regrouping, you can sort of do that in your head. Okay, I'll let you do that. You can pause it if you need to, if I talk too much. I gave you a little video to look at. It's pretty funny. Okay, so the next one is going to be $5.75 minus $2.50. Write your answer there. Okay, how about C? $8.98 minus $0.72. Write your answer. D, you're going to do $4.85 plus $1.99 in your head. So remember, maybe add $2 in your head and then subtract a cent. E is going to be 48 plus 7 plus 20. Write your answer. Okay, F, we're going to do 54 plus 19 plus 320. Okay, let's go ahead and go on to problem solving. So problem solving says the hands of a clock are together at 12 o'clock. So when it's like 12 o'clock noon, you'll notice that the hands sort of overlap. The hands of the clock are not together at 6:30. So I'm going to kind of show you why. At 6:30, this one, the minute hand is right on the 6, but the hour hand, let's see if I can get that to work. Oops. The hour hand is not going to be right on the 6, so let's just erase that. And we're going to put the hour hand right where it would be at 6:30, which is halfway between the 6 and the 7. So you can see that they're not totally overlapping there because that is at 6:30. So when it does overlap, it's actually somewhere right around, I don't know, 6:33 they kind of estimated. At 6:33 they might overlap again. Now, they want you to figure out 9 more times that the hands are going to overlap. So the way I would think about this is I would draw the hour hand somewhere like maybe between the, let's see, the 7 and the 8. And what time would it have to be for them to sort of overlap there, So try and think about it that way. I think you can kind of figure it out. What about when it's the hour hand is somewhere between the 8 and the 9? It would have to be closer to the 9 because the minute hand would be, it would be almost 9 o'clock when you're up there. So it's only like a little more than 15 minutes maybe, and then that might overlap right there. Anyway, I will let you go ahead and figure that out the rest of the way and write down 9 times that you think that they would overlap. And it doesn't have to be an exact time, it can be an estimate. Okay? So I'll let you pause it there and do that. I'm going to go right into the new concept. And the new concept goes over multiples of 10 and multiples of 100. That's the first thing it kind of reviews. And you remember that the multiples, when you do a multiple of a number, it's multiplying that number by 1, and then by 2, and then by 3, like that. And so when you're figuring out the multiples of 10, it would be 10 times 1, 10 times 2, 10 times 3. So multiples of 10 are the numbers that you say when you count by 10. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and so on. Multiples of 100 are the numbers that you get when you multiply 100 times 1, 100 times 2, 100 times 3. So it's going to be like counting by hundreds. 100, 200, 300, 400, and so on. Okay, so when we are looking at multiples of 10 and 100, we should focus our attention on the first digit. So for example, the first digit of a number here is the 4 in 400. But we should also focus on the first number here, which is the 5 in 500, or the 6 in 600. That's what they want us to pay attention to. If it's 200, we're paying attention to the 2. If it's 300, we're paying attention to the 3. So let's do example 1, and you'll see why that's important. It says, find the product of 3 times 200. Now I'm going to show you different ways to figure that out. 3 times 200 means that you have 3 groups of 200. So you have a group there, you have a group here, and you have a group here. That's 3 times 200. So there are different ways that you can figure out what that totals. And I know you've probably already done it in your head, but I want you to pay attention to the way that we do it, because that way you'll be able to solve more complicated problems. So the first way, step number 1, okay, is you can just do an addition problem. You can do 200 plus 200 plus 200. And that would actually give you the answer of 200 times 3, because 200 times 3 is 3 groups of 100, or 200. If you add them all together, the answer that you get is 600, and you know that 200 times 3 is 600. But there's another way that you can solve this problem. And the second way to do it is kind of like this. You take the number 200 and you just write the number 100, and then you write times 3. Now remember when I said how you're only paying attention to the first digit in the hundreds? This is kind of like doing that. When we multiply 200 times 3, all you need to do is multiply 2 times 3, and then you get 600 for your answer, because you have to multiply, you have to remember this 100 part. So 200 times 3 is 600, okay? Now we're going to do it in numbers, okay? So let's do it one more time. 200 times 3. Now, what we do when we multiply 200 times 3, and you already know that we're going to get the answer of 600, but how did we get that answer? That's what we need to figure out really closely. So this is what you really need to pay close attention to, because we're going to take a look at how we get 200 times 3 to be equal to 600, okay? So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to focus on this number right here. We're going to focus on the 3. And this is the number that we need to multiply by every digit in that top number. So 3 times every digit, okay? So this is how we're going to do it. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to do, what they tell you to do here is to only focus on the first digit, and those are the numbers that we're going to multiply. So they say, instead of doing 3 times 0, 3 times 0, and then 3 times 2, just focus on 3 times 2. And if you do 3 times 2, the answer that you get is 6. 3 times 2 is 6. And then because there are, because there are 2 zeros here, because there are 2 zeros right here, you're going to go ahead and add 2 zeros here. Okay, so the easy way to solve this problem is to only multiply the 3 times 2 to focus on that, and then just add in the same number of zeros that were there before. Let's do another one doing it that way and see if it works. Okay, we're going to multiply 6 times 40. So we can do it this way, and we can still just focus on the first digits. Okay, so we're going to multiply 6 times 4 and forget about the 0 for now. Now, if we multiply 6 times 4 and forget about the 0, we know that 6 times 4 is 24. And then you look at the number of zeros that were there before, and then add that same number of zeros here. And so the answer that you get is 240. Because you did 6 times 4, put that number here, and then you just added the 0 and put that number there. Okay, so that's how they want us to think about it for this way. Now, if we do it this way, it's the same type of thing. First, we're going to focus on the first numbers. So 6 times 4. We're going to kind of ignore the zeros. 6 times 4, if you just multiply that, it's going to be 24. Okay, so 6 times 4 is the same as 24. So when you took care of the 6 times 4, you we kind of checked those off our list, 6 times 4, and we got 24. But we still haven't dealt with this 0. So you still have to deal with that. So there's 1 0, so we're going to take that 0 and put it here. Okay, so now we have 240, and that's the final answer. 40 times 6 is 240. All right, so I'm going to leave it like that for now. You're probably going to have questions about this, but let's just do it that way for now, and we'll learn more about how we multiply numbers like this later, okay? Let's move on to rounding numbers to the nearest 100. Okay, so this is going to be pretty straightforward for you, rounding numbers to the nearest 100. So example 3 says, round 472 to the nearest 100. Now, 472, one way to round numbers to the nearest 100 is to use a number line. And this number line has 400, 450, and 500. So I'm going to take this number 472, and where do I think it belongs on the number line? Okay, so it's bigger than 400, it's bigger than 450, and it's probably a little more than halfway between 450 and 500. So I'm going to put it about here. So now I have to realize that I'm rounding to the nearest 100. So this number doesn't really matter because it's not 100. But this one does because that's 100. And this one does because that's 100. Okay, so am I closer to 400 or to 500? And I think you can see that I'm closer to 500. So if I round 472 to the nearest 100, I'm going to get 500. Okay? Now, what if it says part B, which is round 472 to the nearest 10 this time? So that's a different problem, and I have a different number line to show this. This number line, you can see it starts at 460 and it goes up by 10. So 460, 470, 480, 490. I kind of stopped, but this would be 500 up there, right? So then I take this number, 472, and where do I think it goes on this number line? So it's bigger than 460, so I'm going to keep going up, and it's bigger than 470, so I'm going to keep going up. but it's not as big as 480. So I'm going to go back down. And then when I look at the 2, I see that it's not that far away from 470. So I'm going to actually put it right about there. Now, I'm trying to put it to the nearest 10. So this is a tens, like the 7 is in the tens place of 470 and the 8 is in the tens place of 480. So am I going to put it closer to 470 or to 480? And I think you can see that I'm going to put it closer to 470. So 472 rounded to the nearest 10 is 470. Okay. All right, let's go on to the next example. This is example 4, and it says, round this big number, 5,280, to the nearest 100. So which number is in the hundreds place? I think you can see that it's the 2. So we're going to try and round that big number, 5,280, to the nearest 100. And if I do a number line, then the number that's going to change on the number line is this one. And I think you can see that's what we've done below. So we start at 5,100 because that's this number minus 1. This is 5,200, 5,300, 5,400. So this number line goes up by hundreds. So that's the perfect number line so that I can round it to the nearest 100. So then I'm going to take this number and I'm going to see where does it belong on this number line. So it's bigger than 5,100 because that 2 in the hundreds place is bigger than that 1. It's bigger than 5,200 because there are numbers in the tens place after it, but we're not as big as 5,300. So where does it go? What would halfway in between of 5,200 and 5,300 be? I'm just going to write that in really quick. If there was something halfway in between, it would be 5,250, right? So is this number bigger or smaller than that? And I think that you can see that it's bigger than that. So it's going to be somewhere, I don't know, somewhere like right there, right? So if I'm going to round 5,280 to the nearest 100, is it closer to 5,200 or closer to 5,300? And I think you can see that it's closer to 5,300. So that's the answer. Okay. So what we do when we are counting by hundreds, you see that 5,280 is between 5,200 and 5,300. So that's what I was showing you. And then when you want to round it to the nearest 100, what you do is you focus on the number that is in the tens place after that. Because that way you'll know, is it closer to the 5,200 or is it closer to the 5,300? And when you focus on this next number over, the 8, then that will tell you if it's closer to the 5,200 or to the 5,300, because 8 is almost to the next tens place, which would put that to the next, closer to the next spot up. So that's the digit that you want to pay attention to. If the digit in the tens place, if this digit right here, if it was less than 5, which would be less than halfway between those two numbers, then it would round down to 5,200. But since that 8 is bigger than the 5, which is halfway through, it rounds up to 5,300. Okay, so whether you're rounding up or rounding down, the digit to the right of the hundreds place is going to then become zeros. Okay, so instead of this, if it were rounding down, it would be 5,200. If we round up, it's 5,300, and these turn into zeros. I think you get that, but if you don't, let me know. Example 5. Oh, this is basically what I was showing you. You want to focus on the tens place because that will tell you if it's closer to 5,200 or closer to 5,300. That, as you know, this is the hundreds place. Okay, so example 5. round 362 and 385 to the nearest hundred and then add the rounded numbers. So there are two steps to this problem. And the first step says round 362 to the nearest hundred. So the hundreds place is here. And the number that I want to pay close attention to is not in the hundreds place, but in the tens place. So is it greater than 5 or less than 5? And I think that you can see that it's greater than 5. So because it's greater than 5, this is going to round up to the next hundred, which is 400. Okay. Let's do the same thing with 385. Are we going to round this? We want to round this to the nearest hundreds place. So it's either going to be 300 or it's going to be 400. And which number tells you if we round up or down? It's this number that we pay attention to. And since it's bigger than 5, in this situation as well as in the last one, we're going to round up to 400. Okay? So both of these numbers are closer to 400. Then let's do the second part of the problem. The second part said, then add the rounded numbers. So we're going to add 400 plus 400. Okay, so let me get rid of this extra stuff. We're going to add those together. And we're going to get 0, 0, and an 8 when we add that together. So our final answer is going to be 800. Okay, so that is the end of this lesson, Danny. Now we're going to do a little mic drop with the minions. And I hope you have fun doing your math today. Love ya. Bye.